HR issues can kill you. One complaint against your company can turn your world upside down. And you spend way too much time dealing with HR when you should be spending your time on making a profit. You should talk to Bambi. With Bambi, get access to your own dedicated US-based HR manager starting at just $99 per month. They get to know you and your business while providing HR expertise and the personal touch you need and want. They're available by phone, email, and real-time chat, so onboarding and terminations run smoothly. Team members reach peak performance, and your business stays compliant with changing HR regulations. And with Bambi's HR Autopilot, you'll automate important HR practices like setting policies, training, and feedback. HR managers can easily cost $80,000 a year, but Bambi starts at $99 per month. Schedule your free conversation today to see how much Bambi can take off your plate. Go to Bambi.com right now and type in Accelerate under podcast when you sign up. It'll really help the show. Spelled BAM, BEE.com. Bambi.com. Type in Accelerate.
Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Welcome to Accelerate Your Business Growth with your host, Diane Helbig. Diane is a leading small business development and leadership coach, author, and speaker who is passionate about sharing valuable ideas, tips, and techniques with business professionals worldwide. Diane brings you the world's experts and gurus in all things business, whether it's sales, structure, social media, planning, or plateauing. Guests bring their expertise and energy to each episode. When growing your business is your focus, Accelerate Your Business Growth is the show to listen to. Got a topic or guest suggestion? Let Diane know. The goal is to make sure you have the information you need to move your business forward. Thanks for joining us. Settle in and enjoy.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. Today's podcast is sponsored by Audible.com, and we have a free trial for you. So if you go to audibletrial.com/businessgrowth, sign up for that free trial, then you can go exploring. And let me tell you, it's not just audiobooks, so really take a look around. I think you might be a little surprised at what you find. Over the years, the Accelerate Your Business Growth podcast has gained recognition as a great resource for business owners, sales professionals, leaders. We are honored to be included on lists of the best podcasts to listen to in a variety of categories. And this is really because of the guests. These are folks who have expertise in a particular area of business, and they join me for a conversation where they share that expertise with all of you. Today is no different. My guest today is Rebecca Friese. Rebecca is a workplace crusader who helps organizations transform outdated or non-scalable practices into future-thinking, market-leading cultures where their people can thrive. She's on a mission to unlock smiles at work by making organizations better places to work so that we can all do work that matters, that plays to our strengths, and leads to success. She's an experienced consultant in the field of organizational transformation, change management, and innovation. Now, Rebecca is on a mission to help organizations not just be better places to work, but exceptionally innovative, engaging, and forward-thinking places. She's the author of The Good Culture, The Leader's Guide to Creating a Workplace That Doesn't Suck, And we are thrilled to have her here today. Thanks so much for joining me today, Rebecca.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Diane. I just love hearing people say the title of my book. It just makes me happy. And people are
exactly how that
like,
is.
oh my gosh, please come to my workplace now.
I know. I love this, the leader's guide to creating a workplace that doesn't suck. I just think that's so great. So we pretty much know what's going to be inside of there somewhere, right? Don't do this, right? Oh my gosh. Okay. So interestingly, so you say good culture isn't about, all the frills like the ping pong table and all that. So what is it? What is a good culture?
It's so funny because people ask me that all the time because they're like, yeah, of course we want a good culture. And when you ask somebody what a good culture is, what's it like to work in a good culture? They all know. They all start describing a culture where, they're supported and they can do good work and they're not micromanaged. And the opposite, people know that what a bad culture feels like and looks like, right? They have all those words. I can ask, hundreds of people the same questions and they're going to align on it. So, but the thing is, people in organizations are like, well, okay, well, we just want to have like a fun place to work. So we'll just like, let's have a ping pong table here. And then people can like, they think about these kind of actions that aren't connected up to what you're actually trying to create. So backing up, when we talk about a good culture, it's like, well, what is it? Because there's no one necessarily picture that's going to be the same. It's going to be dependent on your organization and what you're trying to do and the work that you're trying to do, right? So, so when it comes down to it, we're like, a good culture is a place where people can do their best work, right? Where people can thrive, and B, that's completely aligned with your strategy, your purpose, like what you're actually trying to do. And so our definition of culture is how work gets done. So it's all those things that are happening to make work happen. So a good culture is one that's aligning with the strategy, with your objectives. Because when you have that discord, when you have a culture that isn't actually aligning with what you're trying to do, that's where you start to have problems, right? Where all the work that you're doing isn't matching up to what you're putting in place from a people standpoint.
So, okay. So this is really interesting for me because there are so many companies that don't have a good culture and they don't realize that they don't,
right?
Like I feel like they think they do, but the people would say, not so fast.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. If you meant when they don't realize, you meant leadership doesn't realize.
Correct. Right? Yes. Yeah.
And and that I like to say that I'm going to have a job for a while because, if you look at any of the Gallup, which is sad, but also like gives me, that's why I call myself a crusader, right? It gives me this real truth of purpose that we want to get out there and really help people, because we all deserve to have workplaces where we feel great. I mean, our purpose at my company, Flynn, is to unlock smiles at work, right? So at the end of the day, like so many people are working in cultures where they are incredibly unhappy, they're disengaged, and the culture is unaligned or not aligned with what they're trying to do there. And they run up against that every single day. And I agree with you. I think I wouldn't say that they think they have a good culture, but they may not know how important having a good culture is to actually achieving their business objectives, right? So they might be like, oh, it's fine, but whatever, it's work, right? Like we just, I hired them for a job, like what's the deal? They should be able to come in and do their job. And like, why do I have to be paying attention to all this other stuff? They see it as like ancillary versus core to their business success. And that's the problem.
Yeah, and it's a huge problem. I mean, didn't Gallup do a study about what 23% of your employees are actively engaged or something?
Oh yeah. Oh, I thought you were going to say disengaged. I was like, no, it's
disengaged. I know, I'm trying to be positive.
Right. Nice positive flip on that. Like, let's talk about the people that are engaged versus.
There's so few of them.
It's frankly, and this is a strong word, but it's kind of horrific. It's to think about the fact that 75% of the working population is either actively disengaged or disengaged at work, which you might as well just be actively disengaged at that point. And the impact that that has on the bottom line, right? So no, absolutely. And the thing is, like, Gallup has been doing these surveys every year, and every year I kind of hold my breath and hope that it's getting better. and it's not. And it's funny because you think like, oh, but all the tech companies that have got all this stuff going on and whatnot, but just, those are small windows into companies that are actually getting it right and really understanding the impact of that. For most organizations out there, they are truly not focused on this, and that's the work. That's what we need to get out there and help people do, and from the get-go, right? So I think about your audience. I think about people that are, starting companies, or small business owners, or trying to scale, and it's so natural to be like, well, blah, blah, blah. I have to like get my, product spec. I have to get that. I got to get production, and then we got to get the marketing, and they're so focused on, those things. You only have so much time in the day, but if they could think about this at the exact same time and be thoughtful and proactive and, create the same amount of effort, they'll go so much further, so much faster with their organization. So that's the other thing that we run up against, is that not only are people kind of like, oh, it's not important, even if they think it's important or kind of know deep down it's important, they're not spending the time on it because it doesn't feel like the most urgent, important thing, right? It just feels important, but not urgent.
Right. Meanwhile, they have all these fires that they're trying to put out, but they're not seeing that setting up a better environment would probably keep those fires from happening.
Exactly. It's that whole proactive versus reactive, right? So, I mean, in this, look, I have a 4-person organization, and there are times where I know that I neglect certain things that I should be doing in order for all of us to work better together, right? And so it's a very human thing to do, right? You're focusing on that kind of product deadline or whatever it might be. And it's the good leaders are the ones that take that time to be thoughtful about culture and people and align that up front and then continue to nurture that, right?
Yeah. And I would think part of that is, the old axiom, working on the business instead of in the business, that they have to get themselves out of the day-to-day so that they can be looking at the bigger picture.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. There's times where my business partner and I, where we literally will say like, okay, you know what? Like, we have to disconnect from everything that's going on. We'll go off and we'll take our own offsites. I mean, we're only a 4-person company and we still have to do it, right? But we still have to go and say, like, we need to work on our business. We got to get aligned on the year. We have to think about what our priorities are. We have to think about how to enable our people in order to align with that, right? Like, all of that it's my business partner likes to call it hygiene. His name's Decio Mendez. And he's like, it's just good hygiene. Like, this is the stuff that we have to do. And it's so perfect, right? It's like thinking about like, you brush your teeth twice a day. Right. Like, what are you doing for your people, right? Like, what cultural hygiene are you doing, right? To keep things moving. But I do think it all starts with clarity first and foremost, because I think, well, maybe backing up to your point, it starts with the knowledge that it's important, right? So if you don't think it's important, it's not even going to happen. Then once you're like, okay, I know this is important, where do I start? I think the very first thing is that clarity of like, well, what am I actually trying to accomplish here? Like, what is happening? And so few leaders, again, it's kind of sad because everybody, if you ask them, knows that this is important, but so few leaders take the time to actually pause and say, what is it we're trying to do here? What is our purpose?
Wait, as a company, you mean?
Yes.
Like
yeah. And so I'm sure you've read or at least seen the TED Talk of Simon Sinek's, Start with Why.
Yeah.
Like, Simon was literally like singing my favorite song in that book, like talking about like, if you don't understand why you're doing what you're doing, everything else kind of falls apart, right? Like, you have to start with why. And I say the same thing about, if you're talking about culture and how do we create a good culture, you don't go straight to the ping pong table. You back up and you say, well, what are we trying to do here? what, why are we here? Why are we doing this? And get that alignment at the top. And then everything else kind of falls off of that, or ladders up to it, I should say, is better. And the operational activities are, way further down the road. It's like, okay, how do we make that stand up? How do we operationalize our culture? That is, you have to have the clarity of what you even want to be doing in the first place, right? Before you can think about the actions that you need to take.
That makes a lot of sense to me, because you have to, it's what everything is tethered to, because otherwise it sounds like you're just making decisions and throwing stuff out there, hoping it sticks.
And you're hoping it sticks. You're like, well, I think this will make people happy. I think people will work better if we do this. And it's like, wait, back up. Like, why would we do that? What need is that meeting? And that comes back to design thinking as well. It's like, what challenge are we actually trying to solve here? And then let's think about what solutions might happen. But as humans, we're so wired to say like, oh, there's a problem, let's fix it. Yeah. And we just make assumptions about the problem, and we make assumptions about the solution, right? And a lot of times the solutions are just things that we've done in the past that we're just trying to like replug in, and that might not be the right thing either. So, it's one of those things. And there's also this, you're making me think about there's like a white space also between, some people think that the culture work is just defining it, and then they stop there. So there's all these places, failure spots, right? What's it called in product development and engineering? It's like, there's all these places where failure might happen. First and foremost is, I didn't even know that it mattered, right? What you were talking about up front. Second is, we don't even have a definition of what we want here, like what our why is at the top. So if you don't have that, then you're all running in different directions trying to create something, right? Because you're not on the same page. The third one is, okay, great, we're aligned, we've defined it, we know what we want our culture to look like and what our values, quote unquote, are, right? But well, there's actually 2 points of failure there. One is that you just did that in a boardroom without any input, right? And people will be like, that is not our culture, right? I mean, we see that all the time, right? Where stuff is pulled out and people literally are laughing at the leadership. They're like, that's funny. That is not us, right? And then the second point is that great, they define it, but then it just sits in some, like, maybe they put the words on the wall somewhere, or maybe they, and they're like, well, what is that? It should be our guide to everything that we do. And we should be able to point at where that's happening in our organization fairly easily. And if we can't, we need to make some efforts to do that, right? So there's all these points of failure along the way, unfortunately. And I think the big message I'm trying to say is that you have to be intentional. You have to really, you can't just hope it happens, and I think that's what's hard for small businesses, is because so much of the culture is about the founders and the people that they bring on at the beginning, because they're probably aligned and they have the same excitement and blah, 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 blah. And they don't have to do a whole lot of work up front to have that alignment. But once you start bringing people on and your organization gets bigger and things get more complicated, that's where you have to start being really, really thoughtful. And that's what's hard, is transitioning, because I think founders just feel like, well, don't they just get it? Like they walk in the room and like they can we'll know it when we see it, and
right,
that kind of thing.
Okay, I have a question for you about that, but I got to take a sponsor break real quick. So
no problem.
Just made myself a note, so I'll remember it. So Accelerate Your Business Growth podcast is happy to be sponsored by Audible.com. I think we all know that Audible.com has thousands of audiobook titles that you can choose from in all different genres, but you may not know about the other content that is there. They have Audible originals and podcasts and guided meditations and just you name it. And the cool thing is that you can get all that stuff in one place. So you don't have to move from one platform to another. You can be listening to an audiobook and you can say, you know what, I'd like to do a little meditation. And you don't have to go in and out of applications. You can just be in one place. So I'm going to suggest that you take us up on our free trial offer by going to audibletrial.com/businessgrowth and check it out for yourself. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. I think you're going to find a lot of content that you enjoy listening to, no matter where you are or what you're doing. I am also happy to announce that my new book, Succeed Without Selling, is now available in paperback. If you are a small business owner, chances are good you are if you're listening to this podcast, or a salesperson and you struggle with getting the results you're looking for, head on over to whatever your favorite bookstore is, online or in person at some point, and pick up a copy. I think you'll find some real value throughout the book. Today, we're speaking with Rebecca Friese about how to create a culture that works. Now, Rebecca, before we went on the break, we were talking about some of these places where this whole idea of creating a culture can fail. And I thought it was really interesting. You were talking about, when you start and then the people you start with, it's easy because everyone's excited and passionate about whatever it is. But then the more people you bring in, that can sort of start to fray.
Yep.
But I have this question about how employers see employees. And if that isn't sometimes the obstacle to creating a better culture.
Oh, I love that question. I absolutely love that question. Okay, so I want to hit it in a couple ways. And I think this also has to do with kind of where we are in the world and the generations coming up. This question is becoming so much more present. So I'm not going to guess what generation you're from, but so I'm Gen X, and that employer-employee relationship was pretty clear. It was, I'm lucky to have this job, and here's the job, and you do the job and you get your paycheck, right? It was a very one-way relationship in a lot of ways, unless you might happen to have a manager who treated it differently. But from a just kind of an outward focusing, that was kind of the way of the world. You're coming out of the Industrial Revolution, you're coming out of a company, it just was very hierarchical. So that's kind of the mindset that I think a lot of the more senior leaders in organizations have right now. You've got your boomers, you've got your Gen Xers, and then you've got the millennials coming in, who, by the way, are now, mid-management, if not running companies. And you've got your Gen Z coming in behind them. And they just don't see the world this way, right? They are like, it's interesting because I have a lot of options. I have a lot of visibility into organizations now. I can pick and choose a lot better because I can know a lot more about your company. The power has shifted in the sense of it used to be a little bit of a black box. You're like, there's a job there. I hope it's good. I hope it's a good culture to work for. But you kind of didn't know. All you had was the interview process, and maybe if you had some friends there, right? Now, I mean, everything is so transparent, not just with Glassdoor, but just social media and such an ability to understand more about a company from if you have the wherewithal to do the legwork, you can find out a lot, right? So there's a lot more choices for employees. So, and employers can't kind of hide, right? So that has kind of forced the conversation to shift in my mind for a lot of reasons, and for good, I think. Personally, I think that this is an amazing thing. Don't we all want to work in a workplace where we feel in partnership with the organization, that we're all here to help each other? I'm here to do a good job for the organization. The organization's here to support me in my career and my growth. Like, it is a mutual contract that we're joining. So I don't know if you read Reed Hastings' book. Oh no, I'm sorry, not Reed Hastings. This is the Reeds, the founder of LinkedIn, wrote the book. I'm looking it up really quick so I get it right. He talks about how people are on tours of duty. Have you heard about this?
No.
Okay, so this is hold on, I'm going to get it for you right now. So I'm going to look it up and I'll say it to you in a second. But the premise of the book is around, it's called The Alliance is the name of the book.
Okay.
And the premise of it is around how, this is a mutual agreement between organization and employee. It is an alliance. Like, we are truly here to support each other. And how he would look at it was Reid Hoffman. How he would look at it is that, employees, if you look at work like in discrete kind of buckets, like it's really hard to think beyond like a year and a half, right? Like like 6 months, you can think about like discrete buckets of work. A year, you're starting to push a year and a half, because it just, the world is changing so fast and our work changes so fast. So to think about an employee as like, oh, we hope we get them for a lifetime. It's like, well, we don't even know like in a year and a half what the world's going to look like and what we're going to need as an organization, much less what they're going to want as an employee, right? And so he talks about these tours of duty and how in LinkedIn, they were starting to create this, like, you're coming out, you have a role for sure, you get hired in a role, but then they carve out a tour of duty, which is really just looking like a year and a half. And there's mutual goals. Like, what does the organization need from you? And what are you going to gain from this on your tour of duty, right? So what are your development goals? And then at the end of that, it's like, okay, so do we go on to another tour of duty, or are you going to leave to go do something else because we can't provide in this environment at this company what you need to take your next step in your career growth? And it's a very mutual concept around, we know we can't just like, hold down people and say like, please work here forever, if we're not giving them the development opportunities that they need to grow and learn, right? They're going to leave. So why not have that conversation out in the open and actually talk about the needs of the organization and the individual, and have an agreement and have it be, like year and a half. It just makes sense, right? Like, it's literally one of those so logical conversations. Another a mentor of mine, Maynard Webb, who was the COO of Gateway Computers, and then he went on to be the COO of eBay under Meg Whitman, and then the CEO of LiveOps, and now he has his own investment network, and he's the chairman of the board of. He's on the board at Salesforce, and he's chairman of the board of LiveOps, and just a very well. Silicon Valley traveled individual, dear mentor of mine. And he actually wrote a book as well. And, for somebody who was like so deep in technology and operations, you'd think it'd be this person who's like, just get the work done, right? Like, and he talks about how companies and people should be choosing each other every day. That there's just because you gave somebody a job, you're not entitled for that person to be loyal and want to work for you, and vice versa, right? Like, it needs to be a mutual selection process. His book is called Rebooting Work, and he actually wrote another book called Dear Founder. So for the listeners of your podcast, that's definitely check out Maynard Webb as just a really insightful person who's been around the block in the Valley and elsewhere. But I just love that concept. He would talk about this, like, choosing each other every day. Like, let's not assume that just because you gave them a job, they're in, right? Like, we need to be continuously choosing each other. And so, when I think about culture, so much of it needs to be grounded in this transparency around what are we both here for? Like, are we aligned first and foremost? Do you even know why you were hired and how that hooks up to our bigger purpose? Are we having those conversations? Are you feeling like you're having the impact? Are you growing and developing? And I call these the essential actions. Like, if you're going to do nothing else, you have to focus on recruiting and development of your people, if nothing else, from a culture standpoint. Starting with alignment, like, you have to have it all clear and you understand what you're trying to accomplish. But then once you move into the action standpoint, it's that focus on, recruiting, onboarding, learning in learning and development, because otherwise you're gonna lose people. Like if you focus on social engagement type things and activities, like but you haven't spent any time on that upfront stuff, then it doesn't really matter. But that's what Reed and Maynard are both getting to in their books, as well as like in their philosophies, is like this is about this really like deep understanding of your quote unquote customer, right, which is your employee, and understanding what their needs are and making sure that there's a mutual benefit happening there. That was a really long answer to
It was
that.
really great. And seriously, first of all, I really appreciate the information about the books. And I love this. I love the tour of duty concept, but I also love this. You should be choosing each other every day. It's like dating.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. I'm going to add one more person
Sure.
For your listeners. So the Muse is a website that was geared towards millennials, and Catherine, look this up too so I get it right. She created it. It's a job website, right? So you think about Catherine Minshew. She founded this. She's a millennial. And she founded this website. So as a job search website, I would think of it as kind of like Indeed meets Glassdoor. So, but it's not review, like people can't review, but she creates profiles of each organization that is posting so that people can really get a feel of who of what they're signing up for, and the companies put those together. So you could argue that like, well, they're only going to show their good side. Well, yeah, it's a recruiting website. but her point is it is like dating. There's not like one good culture that is like the best good culture, the best. It's like, what's the one that's right for you? And how can we be as transparent as possible about what this company is about, so that you as an individual can know, oh yes, that I'm interested in. Because it's just like, dating, like a guy that's a good fit for me might be a horrible fit for you, right? And so that doesn't mean that guy is a bad guy in those circumstances, right? It's just a fit thing.
Yep.
So I love that you said that, because it is kind of like dating. Like we have to be choosing each other, and sometimes you're at a company and it was good for those first 2 years, and then you want to date somebody else. Like you've grown, you've changed, you've developed, you want to like whatever, and you're like, okay, now and there's times where that organization cannot fulfill the needs of that person, and that's okay. We have to be okay with that, right?
Yeah, that's
and I would say, taking it one step further, we even inside a company, we see managers who won't let their people go to other teams, and will almost hide them, and won't really promote their own individual success because they're worried about losing them. I mean, I'm sure you've heard about this.
Yeah.
You might have even experienced it in your own career, where you're like, I'm kind of want to go over to that team, but God forbid I tell anybody, because then I'm going to get dinged on this performance appraisal because I'm obviously not loyal to this manager. I mean, it's just, and what we should be doing is really truly understanding the needs of our people and trying to find pathways best as possible for those people to grow and develop, because otherwise they will leave.
Right. They will leave. And having people experiencing more of a company and developing their skill set and learning new things actually works in the company's to the
100%.
company's benefit.
100%.
Right?
Yes.
Because then you have depth.
I can't help myself, but there's so many great experts out there. So if you've ever read Dan Pink's Drive, he talks about what really motivates people is what he talks about. And there's 3 things that really motivate people to do good work. And the first one is a sense of purpose. So like, why am I even getting up in the morning? Why am I doing this thing? Right. The second one is autonomy. So I as a human, we like to do things like on our own. We want that sense of accomplishment. Like that's why people hate being micromanaged, right? Like we need to have autonomy. And the third one is mastery, which is all about learning and development. His point in his research is like, we as humans, we inherently want to grow and learn. It is just deep seated in us. We come out of the gate as babies. We don't just sit there and don't learn to crawl. We figure it out. And then we figure out how to walk, and we figure out, and we just are innately wired to continue growing and learning. And so if we as humans are put in a place, in an organization where all three of those things are not happening, like, I don't know why I'm here because there's been no clarity of purpose, right? I'm being totally micromanaged, because people don't trust me. And so that's happening. And then third, and I'm not learning any new skills. Like, I feel like a cog in the wheel, and I'm just cranking out stuff, and I don't know why. And it's just, that's where that 75% disengagement comes in, Diane. It's like people that are in these environments that are just not set up to motivate and engage people in a way that is humanly basic for us.
So connect that to this concept of smiles at work, because it feels like, that's really what that's about. That if people are happy at work, then you're doing the right thing. So
right. So culture becomes this umbrella for it, right? Again, if the definition of culture is how work gets done, it is an umbrella of all the things that are happening at work. A good culture is one that's aligned, where we know what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do it, right? Like, why we're doing it, what and how. Back to Simon. And if we're aligned up and down, then we can fire on all cylinders. Now we have to back that up with actions. And so all of these things that we're talking about, as far as like how that stuff shows up, and how we then, that's where the unlock smiles at work comes in, right? It's like the unlock is the actions, right? You can have it all on paper, it can all look good, but if you're not walking that talk and you're not doing those things all the way up and down the organization, it starts to fall apart, right? Now, this isn't to say you can't have, I like to give a little hope in this because it starts to feel a little depressing. I think all of us have a sphere of influence around this, right? So if we can keep these things, so even if like my leadership isn't, again, your listeners are probably have a lot of ability to be a change maker and to actually drive this in their organization. But even if people are listening, they're like, great, well, like my CEO and blah, blah, they're not going to get on board with this. I feel that we all have a sphere of influence, even if it's just with a teammate or a colleague, around like creating that environment and being really conscious about clarity. Why are we working on this project? Why are we working on this thing? Like, how are we going to do that? That's going to best enable us to work best together. What does that look like? Like, I think just the plain old taking a breath and being thoughtful, and even just saying, well, how would I want it to be? And then helping articulate that will move the needle, right? So, so you can look at it from like a macro standpoint of like, how do you do this for an organization? But you can also bring it way down to a micro standpoint and say, how can I, just to use our little phrase, unlock more smiles at my work today, right? With my team, with my people. Like, what are those things that are keeping us from really thriving? And how can I address those things? And, starting with alignment, like, let's make sure we're all clear on what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, I it's so great. I'm glad you brought that up again, because it really does begin and end there. And so if people can remind themselves of why they're there and the contribution they're making, then they don't necessarily need someone else.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing is I would hope that the people that I work with, that when they get up every morning, they're not asking themselves like, what am I doing? Right? Like, why did they even hire me? Like this, you want people to get up and be excited because they get it. They're like, oh, we're trying to get this done, and this is how I fit in. And if you even just start with that, all the other stuff, again, that's why kombucha on top and ping pong tables, it just is so silly to me. I'm like, what? People just want to do good work. They just want to do good work. They want to show up and know that they're contributing towards something.
So it's really a complete misunderstanding of what people value in a workplace.
Now, and here's the thing, it's because people saw that stuff showing up at like a Google and other places, and they're like, oh, so to have a good culture, I just need to put ping pong tables on it, right? Here's the deal. Google didn't do that. Like Google does nothing without tons of data and research behind it, right? So they figured out what's their why and what do their engineers need and what's going to help them do their work best. And so people hear like, oh, they just want to, they provide daycare and laundry service and haircuts on campus and everything because they don't want people to leave work. And what's funny is that it was actually the opposite, that 100% opposite. They were finding that their employees were getting so stressed out and were having to like take off like time or leave early or not get stuff done because it was like they'd have to leave. And they started talking about friction points, like where is friction happening in our employees' lives and how can we help them? How can we help them so they're not stressed about picking up their child at 4 o'clock for daycare or like, I don't even have time to get a haircut kind of thing, right? I mean, I remember that way at jobs. And so they were like, well, let's give those things to them so that they don't have to worry about it. And so that they can be better focused, not be stressed, have better mental health, like all of it. And then feel like they're doing better work, right? So sure, they might stay longer at work, but that was not the purpose. The purpose was to take care of those friction points that were happening for employees that were making work hard for them, right? But then on the outside, you just see like, oh, they do these things. And it's like, okay, like go ask whenever you're getting inspired, if you will, our whole thing is like, ask why, keep asking why did they do that? What was the purpose behind it? What, were there unintended consequences of it? What was the win of it? Why did they come to that conclusion? Like find out the why behind it. And then apply it in the way that makes sense to your organization, because just cutting and pasting solutions does not work, right?
No. Wow. That it's so you have to actually talk to people, right? And have it's got to be collaborative.
Yeah, and Google is actually so good. I give them so much props about putting out everything out there that they've learned. So you can Google and they have an entire website based on all of their people practices that they've done over the years and where they failed, what they've learned. I mean, studies that they've done. It's just a trough of amazing information.
No kidding. Wow, I had no idea. Oh my gosh, Rebecca, I could talk to you all day, but I can't. So I just so appreciate you having this conversation with me. I love it. I think it's so important.
And it's so important what you're doing too, giving the tools and knowledge and experience to people to help them, work better and succeed. I am a huge proponent of sharing and learning and kind of all of us lifting each other up. And so I just love what you're doing. And, always let me know if there's anything you need or your listeners need.
Oh, I appreciate that. Now, speaking of that, I think they need to know how to get your book and how to find you. So would you please tell them that?
Amazing. Yes. I mean, my book is just available for pre-order now. So it's coming out on November 12th. Again, it's called The Good Culture, The Leader's Guide to Creating a Workplace That Doesn't Suck. And so on Amazon, you can find that. And it's Rebecca Friese, Friese. So if you look on Amazon for The Good Culture, you should be able to find it and pre-order it right now, November 12th, it's pub date. And then otherwise, LinkedIn, Rebecca Friese. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter. I'm easy to find because my name is unusual. So would love to hear from anybody. And our website is www.flynnconsulting.com. It's FLYN consulting. So you can also find us there, of course.
Great. Oh my gosh. Thank you. I so appreciate it. Listeners, this was one of those episodes you're going to listen to more than once because there's a lot of good information there. Excuse me. And I also want to thank our sponsor, audible.com. Head on over to audibletrial.com/businessgrowth, sign up for the trial and check out not only the audiobooks, but the other content as well. And when you're heading on over to get Rebecca's book, take a look at Succeed Without Selling and see if it's something you should be picking up as well. As always, continue to prosper and be curious. And until we meet again on another episode of Accelerate Your Business Growth, goodbye and good day.
Hey guys, this is Gabby Douglas. If you have an active lifestyle like me, hydration is key. That's why I love the Hydration Watermelon Smoothie from Smoothie King. Blended with whole fruits, coconut water, and more electrolytes than some of the leading sports drinks. Hydration Watermelon is the cleaner way to hydrate, with no artificial colors, flavors, or preservatives. So you can recover and perform at your peak ability during the summer heat. Order online or through the app for pickup or delivery. Smoothie King, rule the day.
Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the name your price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Are you tired of the same old productivity hacks? Have you read the top 20 books on effectiveness, and yet your workdays and email inbox still causing anxiety, burnout, and even depression? Ready to learn the latest in brain-based modalities, techniques, and technologies to optimize your success and well-being? Welcome to the Focus to Evolve podcast, where we'll illuminate your path to spacious productivity and balanced thriving. Each week, we dive into deeply insightful and immediately impactful methods to help you become highly effective while promoting health, profitability, and well-being. Say goodbye to the trance of busyness and hello to your highest potential. It's time to discover a new way of accelerating your mission, growth, and purpose. Join us on the Focus to Evolve podcast and get ready to live your most joyful, productive, and fulfilling life.